Good morning. All right, we're going to look at areas of other figures in Lesson 3. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. First, let's review the formulas we know so far. We've talked about how to find the perimeter, which of course we add up all the sides. That's any shape we have. The area of a parallelogram or a rhombus. We take the base times the height, reminding that the height is the perpendicular distance between the two lines. So they either have to provide you with a right angle, and then you can use the two sides that create that right angle, or they've included a dotted line which shows you the perpendicular height, and again you will use that line, that dotted line, with the line that it touches as its base. For the area of a rectangle, we do the base times the height, or sometimes it'll be labeled length and width. For the area of a square, it's base times height, or since all the sides are the same length, side squared, or side times side works just as exactly the same. And finally, we have the area of a triangle, which we learned in the last lesson, where we take the base times the height and then take half of that. So either multiplying by a half or dividing by 2. So today we're going to introduce another shape, the trapezoid. So the first thing you need to remember are what are the bases of the trapezoid. Remember, in a trapezoid there are only one pair of parallel sides. Those are your bases. And we actually have two bases in a trapezoid. The height is that perpendicular distance between the two. Usually that's shown with a dotted line. And what we do is we add base 1 and base 2, both the bases. We add those together, multiply by the height, and then take half of that, or divide by 2. Let me try to show you why. If we created another trapezoid, just like the last one, if I could literally copy and paste, that would have been perfect, but this program isn't allowing me to do that. I would say I did a pretty good job of creating another trapezoid exactly the same size as the first one. I've just flipped it over, correct? So if I look at that whole shape, here we go. This whole shape now, it's a what? It's a parallelogram. So our formula for parallelogram is base times height. Well, the reason for a trapezoid that we have to add these two bases together is because this whole thing is the parallelogram we're basing our formula on. And we have the base 2, as it's labeled here, and the base 1 to be the whole base of this parallelogram. Okay, the height is still just the height. That hasn't changed, even though I made it bigger in this big parallelogram. Okay, but what do I really want? I really only want this part over here, this first trapezoid that I saw. That's why we take half of it, or we divide it by 2. Okay, so let me go back. Here we go. One more time. The bases are the two sides that are parallel. I add them together, multiply by the height, but then I only want half of it. So I divide by 2 or multiply by a half. And it's important that you do remember your order of operations. You have to add the bases together first before you multiply your height and divide by 2 or multiply by a half. Okay, so a little bit more complicated than our area formula so far, but not too bad. All right, let's go to our next slide. We also can take the area of any kind of irregular figure. Remember that irregular figures do not have same size angles or same size sides. We can use perpendicular segments to separate the irregular figures into figures that are more familiar, like triangles, rectangles, trapezoids. We're going to look at one in just a moment. You're going to find the area of each of these separate figures and then add them all together. So the area of an irregular figure, the formula is the sum of the areas of the familiar figures that you see. So here's my example. I have an oddly looking shape here, and I can see that this side is 10, this side is 4, this side is 7 till we get to here. It doesn't tell me how long this one is. This one's 3, it's a dotted, and this one is 6. Now, I have not drawn in right angles, but this is a right angle, this is a right angle, and this one is a right angle. This one here, in our dotted area, this is also a right angle. So our first order of business is to separate this shape into at least 2 familiar shapes. Okay, so I'm going to make a line here. Okay, I'll try to join it nice and straight here if I can. And I have now created a rectangle and a trapezoid. It's kind of sitting on its side there. Okay, so the bases of my trapezoid are the sides that are parallel. So that would be the one I just drew along with this one. And I'm just putting some dots along. Okay, that is my trapezoid. My trapezoid area. Okay, remember what I need to do? I need to add the bases together, multiply by the height, and then take half of that. And I'm going to show it with divide by 2. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do for that shape. My other shape is a rectangle, and that would be this right here. Okay, so how long is the length or the base? It's 7, and its height is 4. So for the rectangle, my area is base times height. And I have already said that means that it's 7 times 4. So that's 28. These are meters, so it's square meters because I'm finding area. This one are my bases, again, are my 2 sides that are parallel, 6, and it doesn't say what this is, but of course it would be the same as this on the rectangle. So 6 plus 4 is 10, times the height is 3, so 10 times 3 is 30, divided by 2, so that would be 15. Okay, and again, that's square meters. Whoops. So now what I have to do is I have to add them together. 28 plus 15. Because my original shape were the 2 shapes put together. So this is 13, carry 1. I have 43 square meters is the area of my irregular figure. So the trick here is to make sure that you can find the measurements of. Example. Sometimes I've seen people want to do this. Extend a line like this and make this a big triangle and this a trapezoid. Here's the problem. I don't know how long this is. I can guess, but that's not the right thing to do. I do have the height. And for this to be a trapezoid, I would need to know how long this is. And I don't know that. Okay? I do know this base. I do know this height. I just don't know this one. So I can't use that option. All right, good luck as you start some practice.